You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
Hey everybody, check out the Break the Bell podcast, where we believe your voice is your most powerful weapon. For a weekly dose of our take on what's going on in the world, mixed with a side of history. Find us wherever podcasts are found or on social media handle at Break the Bell Pod. And most importantly, never stop talking.
Prepare yourself. You're on the run with Remso W. Martinez.
Well, hello, Caleb.
Good afternoon, or evening, or morning, wherever anyone is listening to this.
It's
good to be with you.
It's basically airport rules now.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you ever go through
5 p.m. somewhere? That's basically what it is right now.
Did you ever go through like the day drinking phase during quarantine?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I actually did. I did like a short little cleanse, actually, which is a weird time to do it.
Of all the times you chose to abstain.
Yeah, I mean, like not now, but earlier in the whole debacle, whenever it seemed like the world was actually ending. That's when I decided to do it. So maybe there's something a little bit wrong with me. If there is, that would certainly be what I would point to.
I feel like of all the things I've kind of like lost sense of, it's been time. And, with everything that's been going on in just the last couple of weeks for me, now I'm unemployed. Now I'm at this point now where for some weird freaking reason, my body is like deciding to wake up, like be fully alert at like 5 a.m. And it's like, for the first time ever, I don't have to be awake for anything, but somehow I'm able to be more awake and wake up earlier than ever before with almost no motivation to do so.
Yeah, it's almost like this whole year, you know how like basically between Christmas and New Year time doesn't really exist, and you just kind of go about, and then all of a sudden, no, it's the next year. That's basically been this whole year, I feel like.
Yeah, and right now, to give folks some clarity, it's 3:00 right now. You're in Texas, right?
Yes.
So is it 2:00 there or 3:00 there?
2, yeah.
Okay, we're doing it. We're grown ass men, and we're doing this in the middle of the day. And misery loves company. So many people I know are either out of work, or they're transitioning into another job, or they've been telecommuting for so long that they have forgotten what contact with people other than, like, let's say their family or their roommate or their partner is. And people are just getting strange. And one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on today is because you're a fellow Liberty nerd like myself. We're kindred spirits in that. And the one thing that I wanted to do when I left my previous job was I wanted to just relax for a few days and just watch nothing but old movies and binge watch stuff on TV. But it got to the point where I started actually looking for shit to watch. And I feel like the guy in that episode of The Twilight Zone where he's just organizing all the books he wants to read for all of eternity. And right before he starts, his glasses breaks and he can't read. Those glasses, because as I looked through Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and God knows what other streaming service I've got, there's nothing out there. And what is even more depressing for me is one habit I used to have, when I was out of work in prior years was I was that lonely guy that would go to see like a midday movie when like everyone else is out being productive human beings, and I would sneak in some little mini things of Jack Daniels and like spike my soda when no one was looking. And now I can't even do that. Now I don't know how it is in Texas, but here in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC, movie theaters are open, but they're only showing like 3 or 4 movies a day, and they don't start until like 4 p.m. And at that point, it's freezing. They're not movies you want to watch, and you've probably just seen them already 2-3 times already.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much. I mean, I think regardless of the laws or the restrictions that there may be, just the industry as a whole hasn't been putting movies out. So even if you're in a place that might have a little bit more lax laws, say you can open as long as you have a mask on or something like that, there's still not a whole lot to capitalize on and to go out. Tenet was the only movie I saw all summer, which is just crazy to hear me say out loud, because usually that's peak. I'm going every other week, but not the case this year. And I think Tenet and 1917 were actually the only two films I saw in theaters this year.
I think I could stay the same, because 1917 came out in like February, and I remember when Tenet came out. Actually, no, I saw Bloodshot in theaters the day.
Oh yeah, I remember. You really enjoyed that, right?
Oh my god, I freaking love that movie.
Yeah, I never got to see it,
dude. It's pretty good. Like it's a good Vin Diesel action movie, and I have to say it's probably one of his better movies. And as I was literally walking out of the theater after watching Bloodshot, that was when all the announcements started going out that everyone needed to lock down and quarantine.
Yeah.
And then in June, July, I watched Tenet. And then I also saw New Mutants, which I regret seeing. I often regret going to see a movie, but when I'm like, I paid $15 for this shit, that really bothers me. And I mean, I have seen between July and last month, I have seen Tenet in every format for a total of 5 times. I have seen it in 3D. I've seen it in 2D twice, and I've seen it in like that XD extra IMAX experience.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, I liked that movie, but it got to the point where it's literally just that. And then in like September, I don't know if this is a sign of just total desperation or not, but between September and October, I actually paid to go see movies that I have like at home sitting in a DVD cabinet.
Yeah.
I watched Scream, the first Scream from like 2000. And I think I watched Halloween, but it's getting to the point where it's like that's what the options have come to.
Yeah. Well, there's something special, that is kind of irreplaceable about the movie theater experience. And right now there's a lot of talk about just doing direct to streaming services and all of that kind of stuff. But for some things that might work, but you can't replace the sheer joy and the immersion that you receive whenever you go see a film in theaters the way it was meant to be watched. And Christopher Nolan, I think, to his credit, has really like stood his ground about this. Like, no, I made my movie for movie theaters, so we're going to play it in movie theaters regardless of how many people go see it, and then it'll go out on release on DVD after that. But the first experience that people are going to get with this is not just going to be a stay-at-home experience. And I wish more people and more people in the industry would kind of stand up and stand their ground on that sense. But we're in the current year, so
so this episode, not this movie, this episode is going to come out on Christmas Eve, and on Christmas Day I actually have tickets to go see Wonder Woman 84 in theaters. And I made a big deal about it online because I'm so happy to see a new movie for like the 4th time this year. And people are like, well, it's going to be on HBO Max and all that stuff. And it's like, but that's not the freaking point. I think what you said is completely accurate. Some things were designed to be in theaters. But here's the other thing that I've really noticed, because I find myself longing to go to the movie theater. I'm a big fan of like sensory deprivation tanks. Have you ever done anything like that?
Not that specifically, but I think I kind of get, what you're getting at.
You gotta try one of those things. I know there's some in Texas. I will find you a link. You gotta go do one of those things and report back to me. But like one thing I like about that experience is it's 1 hour where I just do nothing. and I'm not around my phone. I don't have to work. There's nothing else that can distract me. And I find that with a movie, going to a theater, even when it used to be filled with people and shit, that was the one time where it's like from this time to this time, from when it starts to when it ends, it's just you and the film. And it's a much more intimate experience that you can't really get elsewhere these days because everything is trying to give you 20 different things at once.
Well, something that I keep thinking about a lot during the pandemic and everything that's been going on, all the lockdowns and everything. Even back during the Great Depression, movie theaters were one of the few industries that actually experienced a surplus. They experienced growth because it was escapism. People would be able to go to a movie and just not think about their problems for 2 hours or however long the movie was. And it was a nice little, escape into a fantasy world. But now we don't even get to really do that. And I think that's rather tragic. I think that a lot of the real problems of the pandemic haven't really stemmed as much from the virus, but it's stemmed from as much more. I think I'm much more concerned about the lack of socializing that we have been doing, and what kind of harm that's going to be doing to us as a society. Because, like you said, there is a special feeling whenever you go into a theater, especially with certain event films. I'll never forget my experiences when going to see Infinity War or Endgame, or even going back to, before we were completely cynical about the sequel trilogy, when we watched the first episode 7, the Force Awakens. That was a wonderful experience.
Oh, that was when the world used to have hope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I remember people in that theater. I went to go to a bow tie cinema in Annapolis with my girlfriend and her family, and every seat was taken. People were there in costume. People were cheering. People were hoo-haing and everything else. Like it was fun.
Yeah, and even if the film itself, that film in particular, in my opinion, didn't stand the test of time as much as some of the other films may have, that experience is irreplaceable.
Oh, you totally got a George Lucas erection when you watched it the first time. Admit it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, everyone was there. It was a 10-year, this was when we went 10 years without seeing any Star Wars content.
Had it seriously been 10 years?
It was 10 years to the year.
Oh, wow.
I mean, if you don't count the mess of the Clone Wars movie that came out.
Yeah, we don't talk about that one.
Yeah, as great, and I think the finale of the Clone Wars TV show is Star Wars perfection.
That made me cry like a bitch.
But it did not have a very smooth beginning, and I think it almost made the finale better because it kind of showed the growth of that show. But it was 10 years at that point, and it was something special. Much like how when Infinity War came out, it was kind of the inverse. It was not 10 years of absence, but it was 10 years of buildup. And then you have these rich emotions. And I think, Infinity War, well, my feelings about that. It holds up much better than, say, The Force Awakens did. But both times you had people just screaming in the movie theaters because
did you hear about the woman who died during? Did you hear about the woman who died at the end of Infinity War during one of the first screenings in LA?
I think I do remember that, actually.
And this is something this is only movie magic. This is something that could only happen at a movie theater. At the end of Infinity War, where basically Thanos wins, this woman started screaming, "No, where's Iron Man?" And she had a heart attack and she died in her seat.
Well, I mean, I can sympathize with that. I definitely felt a similar emotion at the end of that.
But I mean, it's just my worry is, so Regal is basically shutting down permanently, and I think the thing that caused that to happen was that Sony was not going to go ahead and release the new James Bond film, No Time to Die, in theaters, and that was the last hole in the wall for Regal Cinemas. So now we're just down to Cinemark, and the thing about Cinemark here is they're doing a lot of old movies, but there's still enough stuff coming out that is new, but stuff no one was asking for. And I'm talking like these indie art house films that were only getting like 5 to 10 people to see them during their first opening week, and now they're lucky if 2 or 3 people see them within a month. And, part of me is like, oh, maybe this is a good time for that. Maybe we could focus on all these extra things. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like people are quick to give up on the movies. And with libertarians, to some degree, I feel like almost like there's this callousness towards it. Like, well, if the market demands everything go to streaming services and everything is on demand at home, then it shall be. But it's like, the problem wasn't movie theaters. Like, movie theater sales were on decline for a while. That's why they started changing things. That's why they started, cleaning them up, making the seats more comfortable, having more food options, having more bang for your buck, because it's still a lot of money. But, it wasn't the movie theater's fault in terms of why they're closing down. It's because of all these stupid lockdown procedures and all these things. I mean, it was not the movie theater's fault. So this whole idea of, well, let the movie theaters die, you can watch Wonder Woman at home and shit like that. It's like, just, that is the situation, but let's not confuse the cause at all.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely welcome the advent of more streaming content and the quality of streaming content improving, because that was always kind of one of the big, like, streaming's great, but at the same time, most of the shows that are on streaming services that are original kind of suck. And that hasn't been the case over the past couple of years. It's been really stepping up its game, especially now with all the things after the Disney investors meeting that they announced coming out on Disney.
Oh, that was crack for the soul.
In the next 3 years or so. Yeah, exactly. But you're absolutely right. This isn't because the streaming services finally have broken the back of the movie industry, because you don't have Endgame acquire so much money as it did last year to become the highest grossing film ever, and just say like, oh, well, the streaming services are finally taking over. There's clearly something to be still said about the movie going experience, even if some of the other films that you might otherwise watch in the movie theater might be better suited for a streaming service. Because that is still a very powerful experience, and it's something that connects us all. So the fact that these lockdowns are I don't think that I do think that the theaters will rebound at some point. It'll be hard, but I am optimistic, just because there is just something irreplaceable about that people are going to quickly realize as these films start to debut on streaming services as well. And it's something that, as I alluded to before, Christopher Nolan knew wholeheartedly that, like, no, this has to be viewed at first experience through the lens of the movie theater. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon, but I do think that, they've been severely hurt, probably more than most other industries, thanks to the draconian restrictions and lockdown restrictions that have been imposed by several states.
Have you ever been to an Alamo Draft House?
I don't believe I have, but I do believe I have seen them.
Okay, so the concept is basically, it's like an old school movie theater, except you can order food and you can get refills on drinks, and they bring everything to you. So you've got a table in front of you, so you can
no. I have. Yeah, I have. I watched some movie back in 2017, I want to say. And I don't remember at all what that movie was, but I do remember that specific tidbit of information about it.
Yeah, so Alamo Drafthouse is where I go when I want to really celebrate a movie. And it's like, if I'm, I mean, you know, it's not any more expensive than a film. Where they get you is with the food and everything. The food is expensive because if you're going to go to Alamo, order food, because if not, just go to a place of more comfortable chairs. It's a slight trade off. But I went to go see Bill and Ted in August with my father. And what sucked about it was, like, that was the first week that Alamo Drafthouse had opened back up, and we really wanted to go see Bill and Ted there. And the problem was, though, you had to order all your food in advance, and it was there waiting for you in like little takeout containers, and you were not allowed to order refills or anything. So that really kind of bummed it out, because then what do you have? You have a smaller screen and shittier seating. Eventually things did kind of change, and I don't know whether it was because of the restrictions or the phase we were in, or if Alamo Drafthouse was just like, I don't give a fuck anymore. But I went to go see this terrible, terrible Nick Cage movie called Jiu-Jitsu. I saw it after.
I had no idea that,
dude.
Nick Cage even had a movie come out recently.
I will send you the trailer for it. It is the cringiest shit you will have probably seen from Nick Cage in a long time. It's basically Predator with ninjas and Nick Cage. But we went to go see it there, and we still had to order our food in advance. But they kind of lightened up. You know, it was coming to you in an actual plate. You could actually order more stuff if you wanted it. And, you know, what I noticed about that was this movie had no fanfare. Almost nobody's heard of it. But there were like 30 or 40 people in the theater. And, you know, the theater probably fit, you know, 100, 200 probably. But, like, that was the most people I had seen. And what I noticed was that I think for movie theaters, especially for people that are, like, really into the cinema experience, let me ask you this. Would you consider yourself an introvert, an extrovert, or an introverted extrovert?
I think I would consider myself more of an introvert, but I also think it kind of depends on the circumstance.
Yeah, like what I've noticed just about people watching. So my amateur sociology backgrounds, just going to enough movie theaters. Movie theaters are where people go when they want a communal experience without the community.
You know, I think that is a very, I've never put it together in that way, but that's completely accurate.
Because, I mean, people were laughing. People were would like randomly crack a joke. And it wasn't just me and my friends I went with, even though we had to social distance like every other seat and shit like that. Like, it's just one of those experiences where I think a lot of our culture has been taken for granted, because, you know, I'm not a sports person at all. But I found myself actually longing for sports to come back.
Yeah. I agree with that. Like, I'm in the same boat with you. I don't really care about sports. But at the same time, it kind of makes you feel like things are going along the way they're supposed to be going along. Which is something I didn't expect, obviously, whenever all this started happening. Certain things like that are things that I had no idea how much I actually appreciated about them. Yeah.
And I think now I'm finally willing to talk about it. I've talked about it a little bit over at the Second Print Comics podcast with Mark Claire, but one thing I was really looking forward to was getting to return back to Marvel movies. I mean, we should have seen Black Widow at least 3-4 times by now. At least.
Oh, I definitely would have too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
that's the thing, is that I think is going to be a big sleeper, that movie, whenever it comes out. I think people are underestimating it because it gives me strong, like, Winter Soldier vibes and like mixed with a little bit of James Bond. And just
well, that's the thing, man. That looks like a better spy movie than No Time to Die. Mm-hmm. And No Time to Die looks like it's trying to be more of like a superhero movie. It's just so weird.
Which is a funny little cross. And you know, with just the lore, and how much I'm into universe building. Like there's a lot of things about that I've been missing.
Yeah, the thing that just bothers me the most right now is Chadwick Boseman having passed several months ago. I remember you and I texting back and forth when we got the news. I've never been impacted by the death of an actor so much in my entire life, except maybe Robin Williams. And
maybe like Carrie Fisher too.
I wasn't as attached to her though. Like I knew her as Princess Leia, but that was about it.
Yeah, but like how, like you said, it's few and far between. I struggle to think about any actor specifically. Maybe a musician, but definitely not an actor that I was impacted by that much.
Yeah, and what bothers me about this, and I'm not going to go ahead and just blame the mysticness of like 2020, but like you've got the death of Chadwick Boseman, you've got all the production for all these other movies and TV shows being put off, and what that leaves people with a lot of time to kill. And the thing that's been bothering me is the time that people are finding to start to pick at certain movies like Black Panther 2. Like, Chadwick Boseman, regardless as to everything else that was going to happen, I'm almost certain that he would have died regardless. But now you've got people that, one, they're not going to recast the role of T'Challa. So there is no T'Challa Black Panther anymore. And now, there were a lot of people lobbying for Shuri, and I think Shuri would be a great Black Panther. My argument was not yet. I think we need some more T'Challa stories. But now you've got people going online because everyone has so much freaking free time now, and they're trying to freaking cancel the actress who plays Shuri because she put out like an anti-vax tweet or something like that. And it's like you people have nothing fucking better to do. And there's like no fun in the world. And you're going to go ahead and just keep picking at the bloody wound of Black Panther? What the hell is wrong with you people?
Sorry if you can hear this. There's a siren going behind me.
Oh, we talked about Black Panther. They're coming for you.
Yeah,
Run!
Exactly. I think that first of all, on the note of the announcement with them not recasting or anything, as much as I personally think that I wouldn't have done that if I were in Kevin Feige's shoes.
You wouldn't have not recasted?
I would. I think that the character of T'Challa is much more. It transcends just one actor, even if that one actor was.
So we're on the same page.
Powerful, yeah.
But
and like you said, there was much more story that we needed to get into with him, I think. But I also know that just to trust anything that Kevin Feige does at this point, even if it's something, it's not like Lucasfilm where it's like, you've made some pretty shaky decisions, so you've earned a little bit of doubt in my mind. Even though I think that recently, especially because they've secretly behind the scenes been giving more authority to people like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, which is what they really should have done from the beginning. But Kevin Feige is just a mastermind with this kind of stuff. He understands how to do things tastefully. He understands how to do things and to honor what has come before without kind of sticking to it, which is something that the sequels really struggled to do. Do you like give nothing but unlimited fan service, or do you just try to chart your own path? And I think they kind of failed at both of those because there wasn't a clear vision. Whereas Kevin Feige understands very well how to do both at the same time. So I think that Black Panther 2 will be unique and different.
How do you have Black Panther without the Black Panther, though? Like, that's the thing. Like, now they're at the point where they're like, we're willing to explore it. And because the actress who played Shuri, is no longer, socially acceptable. And I think she's an amazing actress. But, like, it's just going to be Black Panther in name only. And it's like, listen, it's like having Indiana Jones with only Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
No one wants that.
you know, with and I think they're kind of exploring this a little bit more. You know, who's picking up the mantle of these characters. They're doing this with Captain America, obviously, with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I agree. Like, there are some things that are certainly it makes me hesitant, but also with the way that Feige is cracking open the multiverse, like, wide open, there are so many possibilities of how they can bring someone in to still technically be T'Challa. Something that I've been kind of hung up on is, like, they could, and I could certainly see this happening if they wanted to, but they could bring in Michael B. Jordan from an alternate reality to play T'Challa, and then Chadwick Boseman was Killmonger in his reality.
That's too meta.
Yeah.
Listen, I think people are just now getting on board with the multiverse. You do that, and like that's a clever idea. I never thought of that. But even for me, that sounds trippy.
Yeah.
I mean, my thing is, it's like saying there aren't enough good black male actors. I mean, and this isn't, recasting is not something that the Marvel universe has never had before. We've had two Hulks. We had Norton and we had Ruffalo. We've had
two roadies.
Yeah, two roadies. Yeah. And we've had two Fenrir or Fenris, who was the guy who was part of the Warriors 3 from Thor.
Oh, right, yeah.
Bronze guy. He's Shazam now, but he was not the first
Zachary
guy.
Levi.
Yeah, Zachary Levi was Fenrir in Thor: The Dark World and Thor: Ragnarok, but even he wasn't the first one. The first one from the first Thor.
Right.
Recasting is not that big of a problem, and we've had like 3-4 Howard Starks alone. I mean, Mahershala Ali, he played Cottonmouth in the Luke Cage Netflix series, and now he's going to be Blade. And honestly, like, I don't think for that.
I am too. I don't think that specifically. I think Kevin Feige is throwing that aside to, like, alternate realities with the multiverse, because it doesn't seem like he's trying to canonize those characters too much, at least not within the 616 continuity. But it certainly would have been easy for them. I think this is a very, like, delicate situation that they're trying to tiptoe around. No
one cried when Norton was recast. No one cried when Terrence Howard was recast. With T'Challa, I mean, with Chadwick Boseman, here you have him for 4 films, including one of his own. And it's like, we had more time to deal with him. Yeah, his performance was great, but it's like, I think the sign of a good film or just a good story is the ability to pass it on. That's why I'm not so mad about reboots and stuff like that, because it gives somebody else an opportunity to do something. Unless it's Red Dawn from 2007, which was a trash film. But, like, with
Fan Four Stick.
Oh my! Yeah, I tried watching that on Disney Plus a few months ago, and I couldn't get a quarter way through it. It's that bad. But, like, with him, it's like it's bad enough that this great actor has died in real life. Yeah. I almost feel like at this point it's almost a double blow to kill a character who could otherwise be immortal. Now, like, you look at Iron Man, for example. The guy hung on for, like, more than half of the Marvel movies. He had a complete story. When he died, I'm happy that, and even though apparently, spoiler alert, he's supposed to show up in a cameo scene for Black Widow because it takes place.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Like, all that stuff.
I'm not entirely convinced about it, but, it's also, anything could happen.
We're going to have to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, like, stuff like that, like, Iron Man dies at the end of Endgame. That's okay. Like, I'm at peace with it.
Yeah, because he had a complete story. Same thing with Captain America.
Yeah, it's like with T'Challa, it's like they were setting him up. And I know everyone's like, no, they were setting up Captain Marvel to do all this shit. But it's like, no, it was really Black Panther. So it's like,
he was the one that resonated with everyone more than she did. So.
And they're gonna kill him off screen. That's so disingenuous.
Yeah, I personally think that if I were in charge, I would definitely recast, which I know a lot of people were saying, we can't do this. He's the only one.
The people that were saying,
I would have chosen
like recast a day after he died. That's a problem. It's been a good number of months now.
Yeah, I agree. I personally would have chosen the actor in Tenet, John David
Washington. He would be freaking good
because Chadwick himself has said that Denzel Washington is like what made Black Panther a reality, and that being his son, it just feels like he's the only person who could have carried that mantle.
Man, that is deep.
Yeah, and I feel like that was a really missed opportunity for them. But at the same time, I need to hear more about their plans. I mean, Ryan Coogler is still the one directing it. And out of everyone, I think he had the closest relationship with Chadwick. So I don't think he's going to do anything too distasteful or anything because he understands the legacy that he left. So given those circumstances, I'm still trying to remain open, even if some decisions I personally wouldn't make about it. But we'll have to see. It's still going to be like 2 years at least away. So,
yeah. Do you think when these movies start coming back in theaters that's going to help actually bring people back to want to go see it in crowds? Because I feel bad for movie theaters right now because there was a movie that came out like a month ago with Russell Crowe where it's like he's an angry driver and somebody cuts him off. So he like threatens to murder this person for 3 hours worth of driving. Like no one's going to go see that. So like they're not being given like the best options right now. And by the time people are listening to this, I'll be watching Wonder Woman in theaters with people. From what I checked, it looked like seats were selling out. But then again, it's like, you buy one seat and you block off two next to you. It's not a good representation of that. But I think if anything is going to happen, with these Marvel TV shows, which I am excited about, that's going to be cool for Disney Plus. It's going to be cool for having good regular content out. But I feel it's almost heroic in a way that like Endgame was the last big movie before all this shit happened. And I think it's going to have to take maybe a Black Widow or something going to theaters or maybe another big Marvel film to want to bring people back and have that experience.
I will say that I do think it is really smart for them to start with the kickoff phase 4 with Disney Plus in the current environment, because that, we've had a year without any content whatsoever. And then before we get our first movie, we're going to have, I believe, 2, if not 3 Disney Plus shows.
WandaVision,
Winter Soldier,
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
And then Loki's supposed to come out in May, but I'm not sure when.
Loki looks trippy.
Loki looks amazing. That is it was kind of like a little bit lower tiered. Like I was kind of excited about it. But also it's like, you already killed him off. So what are we doing here? But whenever I saw that trailer, I was like, man, you're bringing in just some amazing possibilities with this.
Did you notice Owen Wilson?
Yes.
I did not see that coming.
Yes. That makes me very excited. But regardless, I think that, doing that is very smart for them because it will build that anticipation that just a bunch of trailers wouldn't be able to do. And that I think will help get people back into the theaters by the time that Black Widow and certainly things like Shang-Chi or the Eternals come around.
Dude, you think Disney created COVID?
It's possible.
Really think about it. You have another streaming service competing with all these other streaming services, and then you need people to be entertained. So now it's just Disney streaming and Baby Yoda keeping the world from one bad moment and turning into The Purge.
Yeah. But seriously though, I do think that as bad as as all of this has been, I think that there have been some silver linings with the entertainment industry, in particular with Marvel Studios, because a lot of people were getting worried, and I think that maybe they were starting to steamroll a little bit too quickly without having their plans fully thought out and fully realized. But now that they've had this year to just look at everything again and make sure everything's top notch, I think the content that we will get whenever it eventually comes out is going to be better than anything that we could possibly have imagined.
I mean, I agree with you, and I'll take it a step further. I think entertainment across all mediums have been put to this challenge because, I mean, what's like the only new song that came out in 2020?
I don't even know because
WAP. It was WAP. It was just that. It was literally just that. Right.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
It was just that, and apparently Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire," is getting a redone version by somebody. That was ironic when that was announced, during the summer.
Yeah, I think the boys definitely helped pump that up to the top as well.
Oh yeah, that was in the trailer. I forgot about that.
Well, I mean, it was like he was very heavily featured. His music was heavily featured throughout the season, so.
Okay, I need to stop being so conspiratorial about stuff. So yeah, I mean, they're for music. I mean, we were lapsed with music, and you would have thought that these great creative people would have had more free time on their hands to do shit. With the comic book industry, I think now things are starting to look normal again. Everyone is starting to get their books back and stuff, and there are rumors that AT&T for DC Comics might want to go completely digital in 2021. That's just a rumor right now. I don't think it's true, but for comic books too, I think, Marvel Comics, which is, for folks that are passive watchers of all this stuff, I think Marvel Studios is great. I think Marvel Comics, the publisher, is doing a lot of shit work. I mean, they were just pumping out bad comic after bad comic after bad comic, and half their stuff got canceled.
Yeah. I think recently they've been putting out a lot of like really quality stuff. Like, and when I say recently, I mean like within the past several months. But before that, it was mostly just, kids like Civil War when it came out, so let's do Civil War 2, without any real good idea about what that would look like. But yeah, I agree. For a long time, the comics were lackluster at best.
Did you keep up with like what was going on with like the new Warriors?
Was that like that big controversy when, like it was like Snowflake and what the other one was?
Snowflake, Safe Space, Fat Mexican Chick, B Negative. Like it was. I think part of me is like, at night when I'm having like my existential crisis, I've been wondering, like, was the pandemic sent by God for something good? And like, I think the pandemic may have killed the new Warriors from ever being published. It was supposed to come out in March, then it got pushed to April. Then it got pushed to July, and now it's just pulled completely. So that's dead. And then there was their Empire event, which was their big event for 2020. And it was just a massive gay alien wedding. And, it was 90 books that were all like $10 each. And, I don't know a single person that actually read it. Yeah, and it's they took people for granted when everyone had money. Now that, people are more careful about what they're spending money on, it's like, I want to actually make sure I'm getting something good out of this.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, there's still a business. And I think they are starting to realize that the like super woke like trend of putting everything like that into comic books isn't going to be as profitable as they thought it was, and maybe not pull back completely from it, but I think that they're starting to realize like that's not necessarily the future. And you can also kind of see this in Marvel Studios as well, because for a long time leading up to it, you had Feige and company going like, yeah, Captain Marvel's the future and she's the strongest Avenger. And now they're like, well, actually it's Wanda, which I think is much more appropriate. I think that's, I would like that a lot better. And they are starting to, and honestly, that's how any good business should behave, is reacting appropriately to what their consumers want without kind of like spoon feeding them like, oh, you liked Palpatine? Well, here's Palpatine in the Empire, or in the Rise of Skywalker. And oh, you like the Jedis? Well, we'll put them in a voice cameo at the end of it. Like, that kind of stuff is just blatant fan service and not what people are actually wanting. But with the way that I think certainly Marvel Studios and to some extent, even though they have a much longer road to walk with Marvel Comics, they're starting to realize the same thing.
Yeah, Did you see Captain Marvel? I did, yeah. I thought it was a good movie.
I did too. I thought it was a fine movie, certainly worthy of like placement within the MCU.
Yeah.
When you compare it to the likes of like Endgame and Infinity War, it's clearly, which it was like sandwiched right in between. It's clearly going to be a little lackluster for a good reason. But I thought, like, especially if you look at it as like a phase one movie, because that's really what it was, then I thought it was perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say it was a good movie. And in terms of Marvel films, like, the reason why I'm not a fan of Doctor Strange and Iron Man is because, Doctor Strange and Ant-Man is because they just felt like redone versions of Iron Man. Whereas with Captain Marvel, it felt like I actually had to wonder, oh, what are they actually going to do next? Mm-hmm. And it's like, if they had built it like that, I think it would have done better. I think more people would be more open to Brie Larson and the character of Carol Danvers going forward. Yeah. So I feel kind of conflicted because I know how they marketed it and I know how they treated it. And then when the products came out, it's like the product is so good. Like, it's not amazing, but it's a genuinely good film. Yeah, why didn't you just lead with that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in the future, we're going to definitely see, I personally think that they should just lean into completely like how little people actually like Carol Danvers currently, and just make them hate her, and then have a sort of redemption story for her. Or make her do something, put her in a complex situation to where she's going to have to become a better character and a better person. Because that's honestly, that's kind of what they did, what Dave Filoni did with Ahsoka, is when she came out, like, people hated her. And that's exactly the reaction he wanted, because he can control why people hated her and show character development and show growth. I think it's a little bit, it's not exactly a 1-for-1 scenario, but I think they should do something similar with Carol in the MCU.
Yeah, and I mean, with Carol, she just kind of came out of nowhere, whereas with like Wanda and Black Widow, and I think it kind of sucks that Black Widow has to die to finally get like a prequel film to something.
Yeah, I agree.
But like with Wanda, like, you know, she had kind of a bumpy start with Age of Ultron, but like with her, it feels more natural, especially when you take into account that she really got played up pretty well in Civil War, despite being really a secondary character in that. And then in Infinity War, she felt more solid.
She had the most, like, I think she had the most heartbreaking scene in that movie, aside from maybe the Spider-Man scene at the end. Because that was a real genuine connection, and just being forced to relive Vision's death twice in a matter of moments, like,
doesn't make anyone go crazy.
He like Feige really understands how to handle Wanda. And I think that's a strength that they are fully capitalizing on, especially going into WandaVision here soon.
To kind of pull everything together, my big worry going into the post-pandemic America, and with Joe Biden coming in, obviously the day after he's inaugurated, COVID will magically go away.
Correct. Yes.
I'm excited because we're going to get a lot of the stuff that you and I love. We're getting a lot of a freaking ton of Marvel entertainment stuff. We're getting a ton of DC films. We're getting a lot more Star Wars content, which I'm excited about. The only caveat is you're going to see a lot of the entertainment industry across the board, as we mentioned, comics, music included, but particularly movies and TV. They're really seeming to lean on stuff that's reliable. I mean, we're getting another Walker Texas Ranger apparently, and God knows who asked for that.
Right.
But if we were complaining about no new original content for the last couple of years, nobody's bringing up really any original content going into 2021. Do you see that as a pro or a con, or something that we're just not paying enough attention to?
Well, I see a little bit of both. I definitely think, just for the sake of like the entertainment industry and making sure that it can rebound like fully and appropriately in a way that works. I think it's smart for them to rely on the reliable stuff, as long as they make the reliable stuff original and interesting, and not just kind of like rehash things lazily. But I do think that once that is rebounded, maybe not next year, but certainly in the near future, that notion that, Hollywood doesn't make anything original. I think a lot of directors have been kind of taking that seriously and almost like a challenge, because in 2019 we had some of, in my opinion, that was like the best year for film in a long time.
Ever.
In a long time. Yeah. And you had some really good originals come out. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was amazing.
I literally watched that this morning.
It is such a good movie. Knives Out, which is really funny because it came up from Rian Johnson, but a really good whodunit that came out last year. And I would be so happy to watch that again. It's almost like that was his apology movie for The Last Jedi.
It was genuinely good. And I'll admit, I did not go see it in theaters, but I watched it at home when it was on demand. And
same.
You could not tell me that was the guy that did the worst Star Wars movie ever made.
Yeah, I fully think that he may not admit it, because I think he's a little bit too prideful for that. But I think that that was him learning from his mistakes from The Last Jedi and making a really quality film. Because the way he wrote that movie, it was basically subversion done right. And that's the way it should be. So I do think that there are going to be more people who kind of look at that as a challenge and say, well, let's make some new originals. It might not come out next year. But I am a little hopeful that it will be coming out eventually.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Did you see Ford versus Ferrari?
That actually wasn't one that I went to go see, but I heard a lot of really good reviews from it.
Oh man, that was okay. So I'm like you. I did not see that in theaters just because it was not showing in my area. But then when it came out on TV, I think I watched it in like the month of June, like at least every day for like 3-4 days. I mean, Matt Damon, Christian Bale give some of the best performances of their careers. And I mean, it was, movies like that. I think it's going to be a long time before we see a Knives Out or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or even like a Ford versus Ferrari, because for those films to exist, you've got to have the environment ready for it.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree with that. Maybe the only thing I would say is maybe I'm a little bit more hopeful that it would be maybe sooner than what you're thinking, I think, because...
Oh, if I had it my way, it'd be right freaking now.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing shit, man. It's snowing here. It freaking sucks.
Well, I do think it will come out a little bit sooner, though, because I think that the pieces are in play and they're just kind of waiting to happen at this point. But it will be probably a little bit before we do get to see it, but it will come out eventually.
I will straight up drink a COVID vaccine if that's required to go see a movie in theaters. Otherwise, I'll never take it. But I just want my life back.
That would be the biggest selling point for me. It's like you can't come into to watch these movies without the vaccine. And I'd be like, well, I guess that's that.
I guess the decision has been made.
I guess it has been made. Yeah.
Caleb, this has been a great hour. If anyone wants to keep up with you and all the stuff you do, how could they do so?
The best way to do that would just be follow me on Twitter at Caleb Franz.
All right, folks. Well, go follow him everywhere. I'll go ahead and include that in the show notes. Please go ahead and do me a quick favor. It costs you nothing but means everything to me. A 5-star rating and review on iTunes would go miles and help the show and these conversations keep going further and further and further. As always, you can follow me across Al Gore's amazing internet at Hey Remso. You can find me on Parler at Remso. And as always, be safe, be good, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Check out our other shows and more from the We Are Libertarians network at wearelibertarians.com.